And we are back on the radio stations at DoorCountyDailyNews.com just for a couple more moments with Chris Kratcha, the Wisconsin DNR for Sturgeon Bay, and hunting and let me start over. Radio stations at DoorCountyDailyNews.com. We are back with Chris Kratcha from the Wisconsin DNR office, and hunting, a big deal in Wisconsin, a family tradition, and really the big reason why it stays like that is that people practice safe hunting tips. Chris, any safe hunting tips that people should practice this year?
If you look back at all the accidents or incidents that have happened in the past, they can always be attributed to not following one of those 4 rules of firearm safety. And we repeat this every year, but keep this in the back of your mind when you're out in the field, because it really does prevent these from happening. Number 1, treat every gun as if it was loaded. So even though you saw your uncle set down that gun and you knew he opened the action and took the ammunition out, you're still going to pick up that gun as if he never did any of that and check to see it physically and visually, check to make sure that it's not loaded and the action's open. And then secondly, the second rule is to always point your muzzle in the safe direction. So when you do pick up that firearm and something should happen, if you're always pointing it in a safe direction, away from people, objects, or homes and things like that. The big thing in the morning, get to your hunting location and you pull your gun out of the vehicle. You got to point it in a safe direction. If something should happen, nobody's going to get hurt. The third rule, when you look at the accidents that happened, this attributes to a lot of them, knowing your target and what is beyond. So those situations like deer drives, shooting at running deer, people are not sure of what is beyond. Hunting after hours, that's essentially violating that third rule, because can you really say for sure that you can see what's beyond that deer in those dusk hours? So keep that in mind. That's especially important when you look at those people injuring people in their own hunting party. It's deer drives, shooting at running deer, and not knowing your target and what's beyond or what's about to come up as you're swinging that firearm. The fourth rule, we don't always think about this, but the fourth rule is keep your finger out of the trigger until you're ready to shoot. And I don't know where people get these bad habits from. I don't know if it's from watching TV or just being complacent, but there's no reason that your finger should be inside the trigger guard of the firearm unless you're ready to shoot the gun. So I always caution people, take note of the people that are standing around you in your hunting party. If you see somebody that has a bad habit of that likes to wrap their finger around that trigger, that is a huge safety issue. That's your life and somebody else's life in jeopardy there. Politely, you don't have to pull them out and in front of everybody, but hey, so you got your finger on the trigger there. Maybe you should, maybe you're not aware of it. Move your finger off the trigger or something. You can do it in a polite way and not bring a lot of attention to it, but keep that in mind. If everybody kind of watches each other, we can help each other be safe out there. So those are the 4 rules. If somebody violates one of those 4, it can end up in injury or death. So, but fortunately, like we've talked about the last few years, I've been pretty good in terms of accidents. We look at 2010, 11, and 13 having no fatalities, and then those injuries that did occur, were right around 10 or less. So it's actually can you consider that there's well over 500,000 people, 600,000+ people are out in the woods on opening weekend, roughly, and that with firearms, and only
no one dies, not a high injury rate. That is very impressive.
Yes, it is. It's safer than a lot of other recreational sports and things like that. So it's safe, and even though we talk a lot about the injuries and safety, it can be safe if people follow those 4 rules of firearm safety. The other thing I want to talk about, and actually where people get injured more than the result of a discharge of a firearm, people are getting injured more from tree stand falls and injuries due to climbing elevated stands and things like that. I think I read something recently that nationwide 300 to 500 people are killed each year from falls from tree stands while hunting, and then like another 6,000 are injured, and a good portion of those require surgery. I think like over 50% or 60% require surgery, all the way down to 10% of those people have permanent paralysis or loss of some use of their body. So, so maybe we should spend even more time talking about tree stand safety. When you get a tree stand, you know how we always fail to read the instruction booklets on things that we purchase. This is one thing that you should read the instruction book on, or most of them have videos now. Learn how to use it properly and how to hang it properly. Secondly, make sure you always have a cell phone with you when you're going to use elevated stand, or hunting in general. You should have some communication with others. Let them know where you're going to be, so that way if you don't come back, they know what stand to go look for you in. Make sure you're wearing a full body harness. It's a fall arrest system. Essentially, should you fall out of the stand, it's going to stop your fall. And if you're using it properly, you should be able to step right back onto the stand. Some people don't use them properly and they fall below the stand. You're not going to get yourself back in your stand. You can try, but you're not. And then the other thing then you have to worry about is what's called suspension trauma. These fall arrest systems are designed not to let you hang there indefinitely, because what happens is the straps around your legs actually restrict blood flow and actually trap blood in your legs. So it's essentially the equivalent of major blood loss. The body is still pumping blood into your legs and it's not coming back out. So within a half an hour you can be unconscious and dead. So you have to know what you're going to do if you get yourself in that situation where you do fall out of the tree and you can't get back into the stand. You have to have some sort of suspension relief. Some of these vests, they come with a little loop that you can attach to the harness, and you can stand up sort of to take pressure off your legs, or you can kick off of the tree and keep your legs moving and keep that blood flowing until till help can arrive. Always call 911 first, but something to think about. Don't wait until you're in that situation. Oh, how am I going to get out of this? Think about what are you going to do ahead of time if you should get yourself in that situation. But tree stands, more people are going to get injured this year during this deer season from tree stand injuries than they are from firearm accidents. So, and when it happens, it's going to be going into the tree or coming down out of the tree. So making sure that you're wearing your harness into the tree and out of the tree, that you're using 3 points of contact when you're hanging onto the stand, 1 foot, 2 hands, or 2 feet, 1 hand. So you're always maintaining good contact, and never ever, and every year this happens, where somebody gets injured or killed because they're going to try to save themselves 30 seconds by hanging onto their gun in one hand and climbing up in it with another, or just putting the gun on their shoulder and climbing up. Use a haul line, unload the gun, take all the ammunition out, keep the action open, and then use a haul line when you get to your stand and you're buckled in. Pull up your weapon with a haul line rather than to carry it with you, and people do that, but then they don't take the extra few seconds to open the action and unload it. They just, I don't want to make too much noise, I'm going to keep it loaded, and then they're pulling it up, the gun swings around, catches on a twig, and the next thing you know, they've shot themselves. So, and that happens every year. You'd think eventually that type of injury would just go away, and it doesn't. So that's why it's a good reminder. Tree stand safety, more people are going to, and then they always say that for those that use elevated stands, 1 out of 3 in their hunting lifetime will fall from their tree stand. So don't think that it could never happen to you. Think that it could happen to me every time I go in this stand, and what am I going to do to prevent that from happening? So keep that in mind as well.